I'm here to prepare a meal in the celebration of Our Lady's birthday. This is a simple family meal for your guest and anybody else that is welcome into your home to celebrate this. So here I have a very large butternut squash. And the hardest part of this whole recipe is getting your squash done. So I'm just gonna make myself flat surfaces so that I can peel this squash. I first started making this recipe when a really famous cook made squash tostadas for me, and I was in love with them. They were in butternut, but the butternut is a lot easier to peel than an acorn squash. So for the inside of this, I want to get rid of all of my seeds, and I'm just going to use a regular spoon to do that. I have a prepared baking pan that has a little piece of wax paper, and I'm actually going to spray it with oil so that the cleanup on this is just as easy as making the recipe. So then I'm gonna take my squash, and I really want small pieces so that it roasts really soft. I'm just gonna drizzle this squash with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm gonna stick it in the oven for about 27 minutes at 400 degrees. That is not in a recipe because every single oven is different. Here I have kosher salt. And I'm being very generous with the salt. And this recipe is also salted and seasoned in different places so that you can, so you have flavor in every single layer of the tostada. So I'm gonna put this away in the oven. So while we wait for our squash to be cooked, I am going to soak my salad for the tostadas. I like to soak this cabbage until it loses a lot of the color in there, because that is the part of the squash, of the cabbage, that's bitter, and it's also what makes it go bad really fast. So I'm just gonna let this sit completely full with water until we're ready to use it. Also, because this is a party after all, while we wait for our squash to be cooked and nice and hot, I'm going to prepare the complements to this meal. I am making vegan refried beans that are very, very simple to make, but in order to have a full meal that has some roundness, I am going to make these refried beans. They are super delicious, and this is kind of a staple in my home. So I have a stock pot here, and I'm gonna put 3/4 of a cup that I'm actually going to measure of olive oil. And that seems like a lot of oil, but the alternative would be making this beans with lard, and you really don't want to do that if you're making a vegan meal. This is the kind of beans that we serve at the restaurant, and it makes our life very, very easy because we don't have to explain to anybody that there is an extra ingredient that people might not want to have. All of the flavor for these beans comes from the olive oil, the onions, that it's a lot of onion as you can see, and the garlic. I have beans that have been just cooked traditionally. We just boil them in water, add onion, garlic, salt, and that's the end of it. We try to have epazote in all of our beans. This is what an epazote leaf looks like. It's friend of the mint marigold that grows in Texas, and it's also an herb that is added to beans and to a lot of other things because it helps you digest your food. Sometimes when you have a bellyache, somebody will make you a tea out of it. So my onion is going to cook almost to the point where it looks like it's burnt. So while we have that going, I'm going to jump right into our guacamole. That is really the most festive. If I could choose something, guacamole would be the most festive food. And this is also something that I have been serving at my home for a really long time to all of my friends. Meanwhile, I have this going full blast, and I'm just kind of keeping a little eye on it. And I am going to clean this cilantro by really, really soaking it in water. Like usually at home when I do this, I'll start cooking and have my cilantro soaking because I want all of the dirt in here to sink to the bottom. And I'm not gonna like toss it out like that. I'm actually gonna pull the cilantro out first, and then you can see how the sand has gone to the bottom. And then after that, I'm just gonna lay it on a clean cloth or a paper towel. I mean, paper towels are very easy, just so that it can dry. You know, when we are cooking at the restaurant, we usually just shake it like crazy people, but for your home, you don't want to make everything cilantro-y. So meanwhile, we have our onions almost to the point where we want them. You see all of the olive oil and all of this flavor. I wish everybody could smell it. Here I have tomatillos. Tomatillos are really not a tomato. They're in the gooseberry family. They grow in a vine with this little skin on top. And normally to clean them, we just soak them in warm water and get all of the sticky part of the tomatillo off because that is really, really bitter. Well, and not only that, but they're dirty. For my serranos, I have a little serrano that I'm sure it's going to be really spicy. And then I have this big serranos that I don't know why they're so big. Usually you can smell your chiles when you, and for this I am going to put gloves on. We do use gloves for a lot of things, but I prefer to wash my hands constantly. The reason I'm using the gloves right now is because this is spicy, and then you touch it and then your fingers are spicy and it's no good. On that recipe there is 2 serranos, so you can smell this, and if it's really aromatic, then you just need that, but these gigantic ones are really mild, so we're just gonna do that. So this is kind of exciting. We have some color here. I'm just literally gonna let them go to brown. And then I have 3 tomatillos that I cleaned before. Almost all of the cilantro. I want to save some of it to put in my guacamole once it's done. This is really nothing traditional guacamole, but it's the guacamole that I have been eating since I was a child. So now it has a cult following. So every single time that you dine in my house, you have to have this. I'm just going to set that aside together with very, very small diced onion. And I made it really mild by washing that under cold water. Okay, so our onions are almost perfect. This I'm just roughly cutting so that the stems don't get stuck in the blade of the KitchenAid. And then we're gonna do lime juice. And salt. There is a measurement of salt for this, because if not, you make it too salty. All right, so my onions are exactly how I want them to be. See, they have a lot of color, they're golden brown. This is the moment. I know if I'm going too fast, I can slow down to add the aromatics. There is a quarter teaspoon of coriander in here. And that will release with the heat all of its smell. And epazote is a really good herb to cook with. And I'm just gonna throw the leaves in there because I'm gonna puree all of this. And then I'm going to add my beans. And 1 cup of the liquid for the beans cooked. And this cooks for, 5-6 minutes. I am going to lower that heat. And add salt. I am adding a lot of onion and a lot of garlic. So even though the beans have already been salted, you need a little tiny bit more flavor. And there is a measurement in that recipe, because if you leave me to my own devices, I will make everything salty. These beans are completely cooked, so all we really are doing is, letting them cook long enough for the flavors to really marry each other and be rich, and also so that they're very soft and you can just, puree them. Okay, so while that happens, we can finish this. So we said we have the lime juice, the salt. I'm going to pulse this. Hope I put this right. So you have a very green puree. And to that, I'm going to add my avocados. All chefs like to do crazy things with their avocados, but we peel so many avocados that what I do is stay away from the crazy, and I just cut them in 4, and then I don't have to be stabbing the middle. I mean, we usually make a case and a half of avocados for guacamole. So, you know, this, it's a lot easier than scooping and, you know, getting the knife and doing crazy things. Although I always find the prep guys, you know, kind of like whack. These are ripe avocados. Usually I get my avocados at the store, and then I just let them get ripe on the counter. It's a lot easier than trying to choose ripe ones from the store. I think they transport avocados that are very green, so it's the hardest thing to find. Okay, so this, it's a little tiny thing I do to my guacamole so that it is super extra rich. Aside from fighting with the food processor. Did I put this backwards? No, I didn't. I put a little tiny bit of olive oil. And it really is just to keep it from getting black and for it to be really rich. I have a spatula here. This is one of my favorite utensils. I actually do these are high heat spatulas. I do everything with this. I mean, I flip eggs, anything you guys. You can get them at the restaurant, at any restaurant supply, but you can also order them online. And they have lots of different sizes. You just need to make sure that they're a high heat spatula. So then I'm going to put my measured onion. It's just 1/4 cup to give this texture. My reserved cilantro, and just give it a quick stir. And now you're ready to have a party. So to finish our beans, I am going to mash them. You can always use one of those traditional mashers that have the little holes. It's a potato masher, but it works best for beans. Not the wire one, but the one with the little holes. And then I am going to use the immersion blender because I want this to go fast. So the reason I transfer them is so that some of the steam releases, and then I'm gonna have my immersion blender like really set up to the bottom. I am gonna put them back in the pot, and serve them warm from in here. I just wanted to really, you know, get some of the steam and have a surface to do this on. I am going to prepare the dressing. This right here is what I'm using basically as a dressing. These are pickled jalapenos, and we call them rajas because they're cut in little strips. I already took some out and diced them into small little pieces with gloves because they're spicy, but they're not super spicy. And this is the vinegar that comes in this jar, and it's already pre-seasoned, so it makes a great addition to a lot of different things. And I have my beautiful cabbage that I did earlier today. This only requires 2 cups. So the rest, it's so clean that it'll save for a couple of days in your refrigerator. And I'm gonna add my pickled jalapenos, the juice, a little tiny bit of salt, some lime juice, and really this is completely optional, a touch of olive oil that will balance well with the heat. This is best if you do it, you know, a little bit ahead of time so that all of the flavors have time to sit together. And then here I have the other half of this onion that it's thinly sliced. I'm gonna unplug myself for a second. This is only half an onion, but it'll go a long way. I want them to get really nice and soft. Then I'm going to add the minced garlic. You can see how they change color, and actually you can smell the garlic cooking. And then we have our beautiful butternut squash. It's really soft. Little piece. And this just came from the oven, so you're really just, you know, just warming it up a little tiny bit more. I'm gonna season this with a little bit of dried thyme. Thyme is a very popular herb in Mexican cooking. And also it's an herb that actually lasts through the summer in Texas. This is chipotle powder, and it really is optional. That is really a lot hotter than any of the jalapenos that are here. So once it is nice and soft and well blended with the rest of the ingredients, I'm going to turn it off, take it off the heat. And off the heat, I'm just going to wilt the spinach in here. If I cook the spinach through, I'll end up with nothing. So you really just, with the steam from the squash, you're just making this beautiful tostada. Now, in order to assemble our tostadas, I eat a lot of tostadas at home, and they are really, really traditional in Mexico. And the reason they use them so widely is because every meal includes a tortilla, and these are all of your leftover tortillas. And as we all know, as Christians and women and mothers, every single woman I know that cooks in Mexico, tries to use every little tiny ingredient. I make meals out of my refrigerator, and my husband was like, when did you get this? I was like, we got it leftover from something before. So that's our love with the tostada, and also having something crispy underneath your food. It's really what I look forward in a meal. So to assemble our tostadas, this is going to be a simple process. Remember, your butternut squash is really soft. So we're just going to pile it on. Don't push hard because it'll break. Then we're going to garnish with a little bit of the slaw. Or you could put the slaw at the table and let everybody, fend for themselves. But I love the color, so I have to do it. We have roasted pumpkin seed squash. I can cook a lot of things. Roasting pumpkin seeds and almonds, it's a lot harder. But so these ones I bought already roasted. And I also like them with yogurt, so it's great when they're already roasted. And Queso Fresco, and this is really, I love this Queso Fresco because it's from a very, very small producer. So it's a very fresh farm-like cheese. And with this, I would serve rice, but because we really want to keep this calorie heavy, I decided on the refried beans. As you all know, as much as I love rice, it doesn't have quite the nutritional value that your beans have. Especially this one, since they have a little splash of olive oil. And this would be sitting at the table for everybody to dive in. So thank you for cooking with me, and I hope you guys enjoyed these recipes. So what led me to the culinary arts, really, I wasn't thinking as culinary arts back then, was my love of food. I come obviously from a culture where food is love and gatherings and heritage. So it was a very easy thing to love. But I also love the process. As a young kid, I mean, I was probably 9 years old when I started experimenting. That idea of losing yourself into what you're doing was ideal for me. I'm a very hyperactive person, so the task at hand is the only thing that keeps me, in the right path. I come from a family where my mother really didn't cook. She is a college-educated woman from the 60s, and I love her for that, but my grandmothers did. So, that's how I ended up here. I have a memory of a special place in my heart for a lot of the moments where we celebrate, the bigger part of our lives, which is faith, right? Being Mexican, what we celebrate the most is Guadalupe, but in my both my grandmothers would have us over for a Wednesday meal after we went to church, for Our Lady's nativity, celebration, or just, Ash Wednesday, or, whatever the occasion was, we would go to a grandparent. And one of my grandmothers, you could walk into her house and you could smell what she was making. She was from the coast, and she would make like little stuffed plantains with meat. So any occasion that we got to go to her house, I mean, I was like the first one in the car. And she also made sweets, and she is the one grandmother that I could relate to when it came to cooking, because she once told me that she used to dream of food, that she thought everybody did that. And I was like, well, yeah, that's normal. And then comes to happen, no, that's not true. Just some of us people that love food dream of food.